KBLA Talk 1580 would like to thank all the businesses that tune in to KBLA at work. We celebrate you, your calls to the station, and your overall support. To show our appreciation, we would like to treat your office to a lunch for 10, brought to you by K. Michelle's Kitchen Catering. Open the KBLA Talk 1580 app or log on to KBLA1580.com to be selected for our Office of the Week. We know you are just like our staff, putting in many smart, hard-working hours per week. We just want to say thank you, and we appreciate you. You and your staff deserve lunch on us. Enter your office to win lunch for 10 and be highlighted on KBLA Talk 1580 as our Office of the Week. Open the KBLA app or log on to KBLA 1580 to enter your office today to become the KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week. Sponsored by K. Michelle's Kitchen Catering.com. Become the KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week. This has been a KBLA Talk 1580 community call to action. I know it could not happen without you.
Life is uncertain. It's okay to feel stressed, anxious, worried, or frustrated. It's normal. With CalHope's free and secure mental health resources, it's easy to get the help you and your loved ones need when you need it the most. Call our warm line at 833-317-4673 or live chat at calhope.org today.
Smooth skin begins with hydrating ingredients. Olay Hyaluronic Body Lotion nourishes your skin with all-day hydration for deeply moisturized results that give you confidence like buttery soft shoulders like and visibly smooth skin like. Quench your skin with nourishing moisture from Olay Hyaluronic Body Lotion. Try Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash too and get skin your face will envy.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Let's get back to Mr. Farr right now. So let's talk about what's going on in your town. Um, the number, it seems to me, the number of cases around police abuse in Pasadena and police killings are really pretty high considering what a small city it is.
Absolutely, Dominic. I mean, when you look at Pasadena, as you said earlier before the break, it's a big city in a mid-sized city footprint, and so it is a world-class city. It is world-renowned. Just 2 days ago, Pasadena was the center of the universe in the New Year's Day celebrations. Over 1 million people lined up along the Colorado Boulevard for the parade route. Millions more tuned in to watch the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl. But somewhere buried within a certain section of the city, the northwest section, there's these thorns that appear on our roads here. And so when you look at the number of deaths and homicides that police are involved in and the use of force relative, I mean, let's not confuse it with LA, which is a much larger municipality, but it's pretty rampant here. And more importantly, it's the way that the police and the administration of the city have handled each of these incidents that has made many residents feel decades of angst, mistrust, and now we have a new police chief coming in. So we'll see what really is going on.
Is it my imagination or does Pasadena seem to have a lot of police chiefs?
Well, it depends on how you look at it, you know. And what I mean, let's quantify a lot, but specifically in the last 5 years, we have seen 5 police chiefs, including Chief Harris, who was sworn in yesterday. In there were some interims, a few interims, but what we saw back in 2018 coming out of the Christopher Ballou case, it kind of triggered off a cascade of events where we were going to be in this shell game of police chiefs. And so through this time, we finally have a new city manager, and we also finally have a new police chief, which we'll see.
Okay, well, I mean, I know you track these things. When you say we'll see, I mean, what are you the new chief is Eugene Harris. What do you say? Well, I mean, What gives you hope and what worries you?
Whew. Well, hope is just, kind of like not my strategy, right? And so I don't,
I don't know if I'd call hope a strategy, James.
I am optimistic, right? And I am willing to, as I've told the previous three chiefs, I'm going to give them an opportunity to earn my mistrust. So until they demonstrate that they are, you know, for the people and administering justice fairly and with the community and constituents that they serve, we'll just kind of see what happens, right? But we've seen in Pasadena, in this Christopher Ballou case that happened back in 2017, we know now that through the lawsuit that's been filed, out of 197 documented gang traffic stops, 44% of them were Black. We know 55% were Latino, and we know 1% were actually white. Why is that important? Well, it's important because it's telling us a story that we know as a Black experience to be true. It's just now we're seeing it in court that there is a pattern of practice of policing that seems to only focus on one segment of our community. White women are not getting stopped for not having front license plates and tinted windows. Show me the data and I'll and I'll believe it, right? But it's not happening.
All right. Well, so let's talk. Well, first, let's go to Terry calling us from the city of Compton. Everybody's favorite conservative wants to talk to you today, James. Good morning, Terry.
How you doing, Dominique? I noticed you tapped off politics for a few weeks, but
Well, I was on vacation, so what you were hearing was the best of. First things first. So we focused more on, some of the celebrity interviews and interesting guests that you may have missed throughout the years. I don't know if that's off politics, but it's
mm,
called vacation. Anyway, Terry, what's on your mind today?
I
Don't I
want to.
sound refreshed? Ah,
I have a comment for the guy, but can I tap on politics for about 20 seconds?
I'll give you 20 seconds. Go
Uh,
ahead.
okay, that's cool. I wrote the blue line, the red line, and all this, and it just hurt my soul to see all. I'm talking only in California and no other race. It just hurt my soul to see all the Blacks homeless and all this, and it just hurt my soul, young, 18, 19, 20. But I wanted to tap on this real
Okay,
quick.
one thing I will say, it's sadly it's not just Los Angeles. I was talking with a friend in Atlanta. They may not have the scale that we have, but the unhoused person situation is a problem across the country.
I know it's not, but just real quick, because I want to tap on a police issue. It just bore my blood the way Joe Biden giving away money to what's his name, to the war thing. Who's fighting against Russia? It just hurt my soul. But what I wanted to tap on, just only in California, I know it's in other states, can Bass really solve the issue of homeless if, okay, even with Title 42, I'm just trying to understand, if Title 42 is in place, how do all the illegals still get to come over and turn themselves into the border if Title 42
All right, Terry, you're jumping all over the place. So I'm going to let James address the 3 or 4 topics that you've raised, and we'll keep it pushing. And I will talk to you again soon. Happy 2023. He's raised immigration. Can Karen Bass solve homelessness and unhoused people on the metro? Want to tackle any of that?
That's a lot to tackle. But what I will say is specifically to Mayor Karen Bass, what was refreshing about her campaign, and it's something we've seen an extreme example of it in the last presidential cycle. It's not an endorsement, but it's just so refreshing when an elected campaigns on truth. She has immediately said that solving the unhoused crisis is not going to be a quick fix. And usually when they're out stumping, they tell you just affordable housing. And also, I believe it's Terry Brother. In terms of, the immigrants seeking asylum coming into our country, this is America. We have a constitution. they should be afforded due process, right? That's what is in place. So I don't want to go too deep into to the immigration things with you, Terry, but thank you for the question.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misperceptions about what happens when people come into this country unhoused. But I mean, come into this country seeking asylum, or those who actually do come in illegally. But there's a lot of confusion between the two. So when you come in and you turn yourself in, that means you trying to get refugee status. When you come in and you just come in, that means you're undocumented. Those are two different situations. And a lot of the folks that have been dropped off by Republicans, like the folks that were dropped off on Christmas Eve in front of the vice president's mansion in the freaking snow, those are people seeking asylum. They're not actually categorized as illegal because they come and use the legal process that's set up if you're fleeing your own country for various reasons, just to make that point of clarity. Um, James, you mentioned a case from 2017, Chris Ballou. Explain that for folks. Break that down for people who aren't familiar.
Sure, absolutely. In 2017, a 21-year-old motorist, Christopher Ballou, was driving in Altadena southbound towards Pasadena when two Pasadena police officers heading northbound into Altadena. That's important because it's in the air quotes is out of their jurisdiction. So they were kind of in an unincorporated area of LA County. They immediately put a spotlight on Chris. Chris turned into a gas station, really oblivious that they were really looking for him. He got out of his car and was walking towards the convenience store at the gas station. The officers pulled up, swooped in very quickly, and immediately went hands on him. They grabbed him, they put his arm behind his back, and they escorted him over to his car. Chris articulated, "What did I do?" He's asking. The officers proceed to struggle with handcuffing him, and next thing you know, Chris is savagely beaten. I mean, savagely beaten with a baton. He was struck so hard with the baton that that metal aluminum baton bended, and as Chris was struggling, he actually grabbed the baton as the officer was swinging it at him. That officer, Officer Esparza, pulled his service weapon, and but for his partner, Officer Lujan, getting in the way, he likely would have shot Christopher, and it then becomes a whole different tragedy. But Chris was arrested on resisting arrest. His leg was broken. He was transported to the county hospital, then eventually to the county jail, where he was held on a $50,000 bond. Not until a month later, Chris is out on bail. He's searching the internet, finds out that a bystander actually recorded the entire incident. That changed the total trajectory of everything. The former chief Sanchez then agreed to release body camera footage. We learned that the main aggressor in the assault, Officer Esparza, did not activate his body-worn camera. And the public was just in an outrage. You fast forward 3 years, the officers were completely exonerated through an internal investigation. They were not referred over to prosecution, to the district attorney's office. And now, just last November, we have a federal court ruling that has said that the stop was racially motivated, that the officers did violate Christopher's Fourth Amendment rights. His behavior was innocuous, and there's nothing that would say a reasonable officer would find that use of force to be necessary in that stop. So Chris is now speaking out. 5 long years, he's committed to taking this case to trial.
Well, well said. And so I guess the question is, what what can people do about it if people are concerned? I mean, it's one of several cases that you're tracking there. We're looking at a trial in, I think, an upcoming trial,
April,
no?
in April, yes, April 25th is a trial date. Yes.
Right. So what is it that you want or you think people ought to consider doing in this particular case?
in this case, and as in other cases, is as a community, we keep us safe. And so for Chris's benefit, as he said at his press conference last month, but for a bystander from across the street who saw this young man being savagely beaten and felt that that was not proper and recorded it, none of this would be happening. And so as a community, we have to, unfortunately, and as Chris's mother articulated at the press conference, it's a shame that we have to police the police, but as Dr. Abdullah and the folks at Black Lives Matter say is we keep us safe. And so we have to be vigilant. That goes back to that watch, fight, and pray.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. There's so much going on right now in the news cycle. We started with that in Washington, but also here locally. I mean, we've had just such a circus between the election and the disgraced council members here in LA that they kind of suck up all the air in the room sometimes. And we hear about these cases, but it's hard to keep them on the radar and track them. So I think it's worth talking about, and that's part of it, right? Is staying informed, remembering. I mean, you talk about what Black Lives Matter says, say their names, not just to say their names, but to understand like what happened to these folks and how, whether they were actually murdered or beaten, as in Christopher's case, how we can help simply by being aware and paying attention.
you know what's interesting, and I know you're coming up on a break, but for many in our local community, this is a contemporary Rodney King. And, I just want to look at it like this. We know those who have lost their lives, but in this instant, Chris, he was 21 when this happened. He has to live with this trauma for the rest of his life. And so I've spent enough time with families who've lost loved ones. They're able to kind of at least somewhat move forward, and whatever that means to them. But here's a young man who is now 26, thriving, doing well, very smart, good-looking young brother. You know what I mean? He's doing the best that he can out of a horrible situation. And we cannot lose the human condition that comes out of these events when those who we pay to serve and protect us inflict pain and trauma on our communities. This could have been any one of our sons, Dominique, and that's the hardest part about this.
We do have news, traffic, and sports next, and then more conversation on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The suspect in the Idaho stabbing murders is waiving extradition from Pennsylvania. Brian Koberger appeared in court Tuesday after being arraigned Friday morning. The judge in the case ordered him to be handed over to Idaho authorities within 10 days. On Tuesday evening, an Idaho judge issued a gag order blocking attorneys and investigators on both sides from discussing that case. Buffalo, New York's African-American mayor Byron Brown says he's hoping that a person will be hired soon to oversee the city's vehicle fleet. The mayor said yesterday the recent deadly snowstorm pushed the city's equipment to the maximum, and that the individual who is selected to serve as fleet director would be able to provide much-needed oversight to make sure things are ready in case of another disaster. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
No significant change to report on Buffalo Bills defensive back Damar Hamlin. Hamlin remains in critical condition in a Cincinnati hospital after collapsing in Monday night's game against the Bengals. Out of respect for Hamlin, the Pro Football Hall of Fame is delaying tonight's scheduled announcement of the 15 finalists for the class of 2023. The Lakers are at home tonight against the Miami Heat. LeBron James is going for his third straight 40-plus game. LeBron had 43 points in Charlotte and 47 in Atlanta on his birthday night. The Clippers have injury concerns with their best two players. Paul George has a strained hamstring again, and Kawhi Leonard is dealing with a non-COVID illness. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're a slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call on me, your MVP.
Hi, this is Tavis.
Tavis, this is Dr. K. We've got a lot to talk about. I'll be in town on the 28th of February. Can you clear your calendar?
Absolutely, Dr. King. Good Lord, do I have some questions for you, sir. Hi, it's Tavis.
Assalamu alaikum, my brother. This is Minister Malcolm. Now, I heard that you and Martin are getting together for a public dialogue on February 28th. You see, now I already know the date. Now, I know y'all not trying to keep me out of that conversation, are you?
No, sir. No, sir.
What happened to George Floyd shouldn't happen, not even to a dog. How long must the Negro continue to endure this foolishness at the hands of law enforcement? People can take but so much before they reach a breaking point. What do you mean, Black Lives Matter? Black lives haven't mattered in this country since Negroes stopped working for free at the end of slavery. You ought to be talking about Black Guns Matter and start your own NRA. Call it the Negro Revolutionary Amalgamation.
Don't miss this compelling historic radio event, The Return. When Tavis Smiley converses with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. Tuesday, February 28th, 9 a.m. Pacific Time, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready? Stock up and save big now on appliances and more at the Truckload event at Lowe's. For a limited time only, get up to an additional $600 off select major appliances and instant savings from top brands like Whirlpool and Frigidaire. Plus, get store-wide savings on even more items that you need. Head to your local Lowe's store or visit Lowe's.com to shop the Truckload event today. Exclusions apply while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for details. Dial 1229 through 14.
The movie moved you, but the stage play will blow you away.
Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am.
It's Jacarius Johnson's New Jack City, live on stage. Nino Brown.
Times like these, people want to get high, real high and real fast.
G-Money.
They be going crazy over this, man.
They were at the top of their game.
Because you was living for the money.
But when loyalty and trust takes a hit.
You act like I owe you something. Dude, I don't owe you jack.
So does survival.
CMB. Man, we all we got. Your $5 ass down before I make change.
New Jack City. Rock a block, baby.
It's Jacarius Johnson's New Jack City, live on stage, starring Big Daddy Kane, Stretch from Naughty by Nature, Flex Alexander, the original G-Money, Alan Payne, and Gary Dourdan. January 20th through 22nd at the Orpheum Theater. Tickets at Ticketmaster and Jacarius.com.
For love of mine. It's crazy. Calling me, man. They calling me, man.
A Jacarius Entertainment production.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
I do appreciate it. We're talking with James Farr. He's a journalist. You can find him on The Conversation Live. You can find him on socials at James Farr Live. And of course, his writings in the Los Angeles Progressive. I'd like to start with what's good. Ed Sanders and I were speaking yesterday about some of the new laws taking effect in 2023 and how there are, in fact, some upgrades for workers. One of those is the minimum wage has gone up in the state of California. It's now $15.50 an hour across the board. Doesn't matter the size of the company. You know, sometimes they raise the wage and they exempt companies with 15 or less or 30 or less employees, but that $15.50 is for everybody. And some cities have higher wage than that. They have the ability to do so, Los Angeles being one of them, but everywhere in the state is meant to be paying at least $15.50. So that's a win for a lot of low wage workers, and it's actually a raise for a huge number of Californians.
Absolutely. And I, we got to celebrate the victories, right? But I mean, saying that out loud, $15.50, in this, as Dr. Malvo says, in this predatory capitalist in society, right? 1550 doesn't stretch a long ways. And so corporations need to do better. They can't afford to do better, right? They need to compensate their employees in a way. I also think the requirements that they have to publish shifts and schedules in advance, these are things that are going to make our most important essential workers in our economy be able to have a better quality of life, to be able to plan, to be able to budget, because when you're on such a tight fixed income, you don't have a lot of room to, fluctuate. A difference in an Uber fare or a peak bus ride can be the difference between a meal sometimes for some families.
Yeah. So when we talk about the minimum wage, that is statewide. But the Los Angeles Fair Work Week ordinance, what you're talking about, is only in the city of Los Angeles. And it doesn't start till April. But that is, you're right, it's important. They have to publish schedules ahead of time. They can't schedule workers back-to-back shifts anymore. I think it's 11 hours that they need to have between shifts, or else they're going to have to pay them additional work. Additional pay. And I understand that the county is considering a similar measure, but we haven't seen it yet statewide. But you're right, it's needed. So maybe this ordinance, which started here in the city of Los Angeles, will spread to a statewide. The other thing that I think is important about this, I remember when I used to work retail, how they have to offer you the hours before they go out and start hiring people. That always seemed like it was something that companies like to do, keep you part-time. So instead of giving you more hours so that you could pay your bills, they'll just keep adding employees and keep them all under 25 hours a week, and they're not allowed to do that anymore. So I think that is important.
It absolutely is. And that's a cost saving strategy that companies, employ to offset having to pay for additional benefits such as healthcare. And so, it's not fair to the workers. I think about my first job making $3.35 an hour, right?
Woo.
That was the minimum wage at that time. And then when you look at that 35 years later, right, it's only increased fivefold. So where are we really at in that wage gap, in that wage separation, so that folks can have a quality of life? No one's saying that they need to be paid six figures, but in fact, here in the United States, if you make $80,000, you're probably in about the 3% of wage earners across the board. Six figures is about 2% or so, and so we're looking at folks, even here in the city of Pasadena, you need about $80,000 minimum income to afford to live.
Those figures don't sound right, James. 80,000 puts you in the 2%. I don't know about that.
Look at it. Check it
Okay.
out. Check
Because
it out.
honestly, I know that in some places, those dollars stretch further, right? So that was one of the conversations that came out of the UC strike. A lot of the workers in other places were mad because the contract provides higher wages for people who work in the Bay Area or Los Angeles area. But in reality, it's practical because it is so much more expensive to live in those places.
Right. And again, in those other places, you could take a tradesman, or you could take a college educated, or you could take someone that perhaps is in a sales industry, right? And if you're living in Jackson, Mississippi, and you're earning $110,000, that goes so much further there than it being the median or affordable housing threshold in San Francisco. And so we just got to look at what it costs to live here, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
It is expensive.
I understand people not wanting to put a tier system in place, but maybe it needs to be not just the consideration for the Bay and LA. Maybe it needs to be linked to the cost of living in any location, because the what it takes to pay your basic bills varies so extremely from area to area in the United States.
Well, it's all related. The wage affects where you can afford to live. And like a city here in Pasadena, we've seen the African American population decrease by 50% in the last 2 census surveys. And so you've gone from a very thriving, diverse socio-economic African American community to, in the next 20 years, economists are predicting that half of the population will continue to live at or below poverty, and we'll be roughly looking at about 4,000 blacks in a city of about 150,000 people. And so, when you look at the cost of living, it's just so expensive here. And our communities are being impacted and affected for several reasons. One, we sell Big Mama's house. 2, we can't afford to keep the house up, so we have to sell it. 3, we take the silver and out in the IE and get the nice track home, right? I mean, these are real things that happen, but our Black communities are not being replenished and replaced in strongholds that they once held for decades.
Yeah, I mean, I get that demographers make those predictions, and we see the trend line. But I'm going to push back a little bit on that, James, because I feel like at least in Los Angeles, we are making different choices. African Americans are rallying the buying power that they have, that some of the social capital from the protest and organizing that we're doing. And I see people buying the block. I see people um, opening new businesses and making the choice not to sell Big Mama's house if they can. And also, I guess I've changed my perception a little bit. I still want us to circle our wagons and not just leave and sell the house. But I understand that people have a right to do so, and I've come to understand that many of those communities out in the Inland Empire and places of parts unknown, as Anthony Bourdain would say, are thriving, and they have their own communities where they're getting more for their money, and that's many times what folks were looking for. So as long as they're able to build that infrastructure, and when I say infrastructure, I'm talking about our civil rights infrastructure, so that they can thrive instead of being terrorized in these new communities. We may continue to defy the odds in this country.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with you, Dominic. I've seen what's happening in Los Angeles. And to be honest with you, if I want an authentic Black experience, I have to travel 12 miles because it's just been depleted here in the last 20 years in Pasadena. And so, it can continue in LA. I'm excited about what I see down in Africatown and the different folks who are doing and starting businesses. I was speaking specifically for our community locally here in Pasadena. And again, all politics are local, right? So this may just be a microcosm, right? This is a small patch of the San Gabriel Valley or the greater Los Angeles County. But Pasadena is a premier city. It's a central city, right? I mean, outside of maybe Windsor Park and the Leimert Park area and Baldwin Hills area, this is the second place where you have such a large concentration of Black wealth generationally. It just has not been replaced. And there are some other factors that may contribute to folks staying in LA, like rent control and other things that have been able to kind of keep a local community in place, whereas these protections aren't in existence in Pasadena. So you see the flight happen, the younger, hipper folks coming in and then calling the police on their Black neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, surely it's happening here as well. I just, I always want to push back on the self-fulfilling prophecy and remember that many times it's not too late to have a different outcome. And just for the record, the city of LA minimum wage here is $16.04. And some, I guess a lot of California cities have different, slightly higher than the state minimum. But that said, I think the real minimum wage should be more like $30 an hour to live in Southern California. James Farr is my partner in politics this morning, and we do have a lot to talk about.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
On Sunday, January 15th at 4 p.m., SCLC Southern California presents Moving into the Promise of the Beloved Community at the 52nd Annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Celebration. President William D. Smart invites you to attend the celebration on Dr. King's birthday, Sunday, January 15th, 4 p.m. at the Sheraton LAX, 6101 West Century Boulevard. This year's event will honor community members who have made a significant impact in 2022, including our own Tavis Smiley, who will also deliver the keynote address. For tickets, call 213-268-3082 or email Pastor Smart at sclc-sc.org. That's 213-268-3082 or email Pastor Smart at sclc-sc.org. Don't miss SCLC Southern California's 52nd Annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Celebration, Sunday, January 15th, 4 p.m. at the Sheraton LAX.
Do you struggle with occasional nerve aches in your hands or feet? Try Nervive Nerve Relief from the world's #1 nerve care company. Nervive tablets contain alpha-lipoic acid to relieve nerve aches, weakness, and discomfort, plus B-complex vitamins to support healthy nerve function as you age. Live life with less nerve discomfort with Nervive Nerve Relief. Learn more at nervivehealth.com. And try Nervive Pain Relieving Cream to block nerve pain signals at the source. Use as directed.
When you're an innovative business, every blinking cursor, every blank page is an opportunity. What will you do with it? Will you make something better or create something new? Our Dell Technologies advisors provide you with tools and expertise to do incredible things. Because we believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel vPro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
Yes, indeed. Talking with James Farr of the LA Progressive, the Conversation Live. James, we are looking at and getting slammed again today with another whole bunch of rain. Not as much as Northern California. I was talking to a friend up there, and I guess they've got the emergency command centers open, and they're in full-fledged disaster response mode, having been hit really hard with these past few storms. And just Mayor London Breed in San Francisco saying they've cleaned out all the rain gutters. They've, taken all of these precautionary measures, handing out sandbags. But Southern California looks to be hit pretty hard as well today. I think if you can stay off the roads, if you have the luxury of doing so, might not be a bad idea.
Absolutely. I mean, Northern California and here, we're not as used to the rain, Dominique. I'm a Bay Area guy, so I grew up with it. So I chuckle here when we get what folks call rain. But folks, take that time to, if you live in those burned out areas, we've seen a lot of forest fires in the last decade or so. If you're in those burned out areas, get those sandbags. Have an emergency plan, plan what you are going to do should you lose power or need to evacuate, keep a couple of dollars standing by, and, enjoy this time with your family,
Yeah, if
we
you
don't
can do
get
it.
this too often.
I mean, you say what we call rain, and I'm from the Bay too. So I know about those endless day in, day out. It's just raining, raining, raining. But we've had some real rain the past, week. We've had some real, I felt like I was in the Bay.
Well, you know what, Dominique? See, you way over my qualifications and pay grade, but I think you're flirting with climate change, right?
Yeah.
Global warming, and that is certainly another topic for someone much more qualified to speak about. But we are seeing impacts of us as a human race neglecting our planet, and the storms in Buffalo and things that are just continuing to happen, more and more hurricanes. I was in Tampa last year just before the hurricane came in, and it's just
Wow.
amazing what we're experiencing. I mean, I got out a couple of days before, and I had no idea that the largest hurricane to be recorded was barreling down. And so, we have to be better stewards of our planet. We have to look at renewable energies. I mean, there's a myriad of things that we need to do, but these are all policy things. The water issue that you're speaking of, we folks need to understand who controls our water down here in Southern California. You can look into the Rusnick family and their stronghold up in the Central Valley on the water privatization. So it's capitalism just finds its way into many different things, and rich get richer, and they get richer by controlling resources.
Got James Farr with us, and when we come forward, James, I'd love to hear a story or thought, a concept. Maybe it's an organizing a drive that you're involved with. What you want to highlight before we lose you at the top of the hour. It is KBLA Talk 1580, where we're highlighting and amplifying Black and progressive voices around the clock.
We may be LA's newest talk station, but when you're punching above your weight, it's not about whether you can throw a punch. Can you take a punch? We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. And we don't black down. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, reminding you when we fight, we win. Central CSO organizes for the rights of the undocumented, quality public education, and supporting in solidarity other communities seeking social justice. Central CSO stands for Chicano X, self-determination, defending public education, and fighting for all oppressed people in Boyle Heights and East Los Angeles. Find Central CSO meetings every third Wednesday. Visit online at centralcso.wordpress.com or on Instagram at CentralCS. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
This story is called The Ugly Truth About Timeshare. If you think you've done your family a favor by buying a timeshare, you need my help. Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO and founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started helping folks cancel their timeshare. And in the process, started what's now called the timeshare cancellation industry. Timeshare is the only thing that you can buy that you can't tell me how much it's going to cost or when it's going to end. When you buy a timeshare, you give them a blank check to fill out any amount they want for annual maintenance and assessment fees. The crazy thing is, this never ends. Even when you die, your family's now going to be stuck with this burden. Stop the insanity today. Call my office now. If we take you as a client, I guarantee we'll cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call for your free information kit. 800-522-5700. 800-522-5700. 800-522-5700.
Looking for legitimate political discourse without the bear spray? Tune in and speak out. KBLA Talk 1580.
It's amazing how fast time goes by on the radio, huh, James? It's just like an alternate reality. I go into the twilight zone every single day. But we got a few minutes here. What do you want to kind of call our attention to?
For me, Dominique, it always comes back to Black media. We are in Black media, and there's a plethora of options here in Los Angeles. It's important that your listeners, my readers, my audience, that we continue to support our Black media outlets. We are small. We're mighty, but we have stories to tell. And so the way that the public can, follow, but free press isn't free. It costs, right? And so when you hear these commercials on KBLA, or if you see some of the ads that are, in some of the other, go support those businesses and let them know where you heard about them. Right. And so we can do our part in the information exchange and communication. There are organizations like Black Lives Matter Grassroots. There's the ACLU. There are a myriad of organizations that if you want to do a little bit more on the ground work, that's an option for you. And if some of you don't want to get your hands dirty and it's easier for you to enter that 3-digit code on the back of your credit card, make a donation to these organizations. But there's no excuse. There's no reason why we all can't do our part in some capacity. We all have agency, and we have to be vigilant with that agency and put it back to that collective and liberating African Americans in this country.
Yeah, those are great words, and I think it's an important way to kick off 2023. I feel like there's a bit of a backlash right now, which is normal, right? We see ebb and flow. The pendulum swings one way, then swings the other way. But I feel like there's a bit of a backlash against activism, against protesters. We've heard some commentary. We've seen people saying that, that trying to speak about the anti-racist movement or Black Lives Matter movement in past tense. How do you view that?
When Joe Biden won the election, for many folks that we may even consider as allies, and for most folks across the country, the nightmare that they felt that they were in for the 4 previous years was over. Also was over was the issues of Black liberation, and so it's kind of this move on culture. The theme for the Tournament of Roses parade this year was turning the corner. We kind of just see this as folks, it's fragility. It's a plethora of things, right? But white society wants us to forget, right? Let's move on. Let's look at these new things, right? And we can't forget. And that's why what we do through our platforms and our voices is so important, right? It's not over. And in fact, what I'm tracking is a lot of the activity and a lot of these right wing and national groups. For many of them, it's a zero fail mission coming into 2024. You thought January 6th was something? I'm just saying.
Yeah, well,
It's real.
I mean, and it seems to be actually a much more, believe it or not, unpredictable and toxic mix when you look at what's happening, with the GOP. Speaking of January 6th, what's going on with the leadership. I mean, the fact that Kevin McCarthy is getting humiliated because he's not far enough to the right is definitely a shot across the bow in this new
Crazy
brand
ain't
new year.
crazy anymore.
Yeah.
It's a new brand of crazy, right? And
Yeah.
so the Democrats and other majority leaders, they need to do something radical, right? They cannot tiptoe around these giant steps that the GOP is planning, right? And so it's going to take a different approach. I don't know if Biden is the candidate that should be the next president. I just don't know that right now.